Holmoe to bring some calm and serenity to our morning of shakes here in the Wasatch Front. Tom, you're a guy that has experienced a few earthquakes, being a Cali boy, so I'm sure this felt like beans compared to some of the things you've been through.
Well, it still shook me a little bit. It's a little bit of I think people think it's a shake, but it's more of a little bit of a roll. And I was in one when I was 11, I think, 71 in L.A., and then Loma Prieta in San Francisco. I've had a few, but no one gets used to them.
Are you okay with me stealing that sign?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, the statute of limitations is probably worn out.
It's been a minute.
And because they canceled our season, everything's off.
Yeah, it's all good, right? We were just talking about the simulated run that BYU just made to the national championship game. Emotionally, we talked about it. It's hard to kind of think about that and go there because of what maybe our team here could have done. How have you kind of coped with that emotionally in terms of thinking about the tourney or not?
Well, first off, I'm not going to watch the simulation. It's not right. It's not hard. It's just too hard. But I think taking care of the kids, being with the kids, talking with them, talking about their plans, talking about eligibility and all these things that are out there, that's kind of the matter at hand right now. So, yeah, we talk sometimes. Some of them want to talk about what ifs, but I try to get them focused on what's next, what's going to happen when we come back. But I think for the most part, our players are understanding, they're mature, they understand that the whole world is in a pandemic, and they're trying to find their place in it right now. That's a hard thing for some of these young kids to do.
Yeah, how do those conversations typically go when you get to the what if we're allowed to come back? So the spring sports, the NCAA is clearly leaning towards allowing seniors that didn't get their final season to come back.
Not leaning, they said they're doing it.
It's doing it.
Yeah.
The winter sports are kind of still up in the air. So how do you approach those conversations?
Well, I was on a call yesterday with the Division I Athletic Directors Association. It's called Lead One. Tom McMillan runs that, with Mark Emmert and Donald Remy, the general counsel for the NCAA, Kevin Lennon, vice president of Division I, Kathleen McNeely, CFO of the NCAA. And I think that they kind of jumped the gun a little bit on winter. It's not as realistic to me as spring is a done thing. They're going to work that out. But I think somehow, some way, it kind of spread too quickly that winter's going to follow. I'm not so sure. If I was to say today, I would think it probably wouldn't.
Yeah, and I felt the same way. I thought, you know what, it is hard, but spring is like, you never even got to the halfway point in a lot of those cases. Men's volleyball got 2/3 or 3/4, but certainly there have been, it's been a struggle for a lot of teams. Men's volleyball kind of sticks out because it was the week they became number one and just pounded Hawaii on Thursday and just barely lost right on the other hand. And that one in particular is tough. We're going to talk to Davide Gardini, but there are a lot of it's you're talking about what's next. I'm still learning it's just hard to feel the finality of all of it. How are you coping?
I'm sure
with
we're
that?
going to be talking about this for years, and there'll be an asterisk, obviously, with all these sports. We're just trying to make the best of each day. It's very difficult. The hardest part of every day is just the number of changes that happen from day to day. So you spend all day alerting and informing and warning and trying to communicate the best you can to these athletes, coaches, and our staff and fans. And then the next day, everything changes, and you go right back to square one. So I've kind of resolved that will be what we do for the next little while, and try to keep everybody together. That's kind of been the message with the athletes is, even though we're Zooming and FaceTiming and we're not doing things face-to-face, we got to stay together. And this generation can do it because they're techno-savvy. And the old dudes are the ones that are going, how's this work? Thank goodness I have a young assistant that can take care of me on all my technology needs. But really, you can do a lot of things semi-normally. Most of the things that we're doing with school, tutorial, all those kind of things are not normal, but they are continuing.
Let us know when your TikTok account drops, okay? We'll be the first to follow.
I'll never say never, but I don't think it's going to happen. These marketing people on The Rock can talk me into just about anything.
Tom Holmoe with us on BYU Sports Nation. Let's talk about the health of your athletic department. I'm looking at a final ranking of number 18 for BYU basketball. Gymnastics ranked number 16. Your women's track and field program was number 9. The health of the department, when you look at the Learfield Cup standings, seems maybe better than ever. So how do you balance all of that and try and push it forward knowing what could have been?
Well, even though there aren't crown champions and it's not official in many respects, you still can't take away what these kids have accomplished in all of the sports. I think that it'll be hard, and some of them had chances to be named All-American. I don't know if they're going to do All-American teams. We have some volleyball players that could have been the National Player of the Year. Those are things that are what-ifs, but we know in our hearts, and they know, that great things happen this year. And you got to kind of hold on to that. And there's going to be stories to tell forever. Some of those stories will be bittersweet, and some of those stories will be great. I just don't think with the basketball team or the volleyball team or gymnastics or track that they're going to go, it was too hard. I think they're going to go, we were really good. Now, we might have got gypped out of an opportunity, but you can't take away what they have accomplished.
Question about the seniors returning. Is that just seniors getting a year, or will that be like everyone was paused in their eligibility?
Everyone was paused if you're talking about the spring. So what they're talking about right now, and they're talking out loud, is that everybody gets like a redshirt year. That was like a redshirt year.
Okay.
Everybody gets it.
The Corona redshirt.
Yes.
Yeah, and because I was thinking about that, like, if I'm a junior, did I just lose my junior? No, you can come back. So, talking to Sean Olmstead, there's a good chance we see Will Stanley and maybe Mickey Yauhiainen and Zach Eschenberg. So we could see the same BYU team, but maybe even better next year, which is potentially exciting.
I mean, one of the things you have to think about is these young, even though they're young kids, I call them kids because I'm so old, but they have lives to move on to.
Sure.
I think Ed Eyestone has shared that we have some great kids that if they had another year, they could do amazing things. But they're incredible students. They're graduating. They've already locked up great jobs. They're married. Some have children. And the question is, am I going to come back and play, or am I going to move on with my life? If you talk to the BYU community, our athletic community, there's a lot of our kids that are having to make a decision. It might be time for me to continue on with my life, but they're all waiting. They all want to see. We'll have communications. We'll have conversations. We'll let them know where we stand, and they'll let us know where they stand, and we'll make those decisions to move on to next year's competitive teams.
I didn't know you could leave BYU. That's news to me. I've been here 14 years.
He's still here.
Sorry, what? I want to be here.
In Studio B. What about the peculiar case of Gavin Baxter? He comes back and plays only a few games. Does the NCAA consider his situation differently than most? Like, is there a chance that he could be granted another
2 years?
Yeah.
I really don't know. I think that's another story that a lot of people aren't talking about, but he came back after sitting out most of the year to be there for the team. I think it's a great story. But I think with Gavin, he has so much talent and potential that we'll have to see how it goes. And we'll probably, with this situation, have to go year to year. And we'll see how it goes with each one of them. And it's not a guarantee. Our coaches aren't counting on all of our players coming back in all the sports because they missed their spring year.
You released about a 5-minute video yesterday addressing everything that's going on with coronavirus and whatnot. What compelled you to make the video?
Well, I just was talking to a lot of fans. I'd bump into people here and there, socially distanced from 6 feet. But I think the main thing was people wanted to know what was going on. I feel like Cougar Nation is part of my extended family. Like some people in Cougar Nation, I feel like they live in my basement.
Rent-free?
But it's like there's a lot of people out there that really care about our student athletes and our coaches and our teams. And I called all my family. I called my kids. I talked to all of them. They're huge BYU fans. They had a lot of questions for me about Gavin and Yoli and volleyball. They had all those questions. And I thought, our people want to know what's going on. We'll bring them more stuff. We're not going anywhere. We're going to adjust and adapt and transition and all the other words you could use to get through this. But at some point in time, we'll be back. And when we come back, we don't want them to have left. So that yesterday or the day before, whenever that came out, and going forward, it's our plan, along with you guys, we think you're a big part of this, Sports Nation, to be able to keep us connected with Cougar Nation.
And we really appreciate that. And, we want everyone to be safe. We're excited to be a part of that. And I really appreciate you saying something that no one else has said, which is, you know what, the games will be played in the future. I just hadn't thought about, yes, this will resume at some point. So I appreciate that forward thinking right there.
Well, that's the only way you can think. And I think one of the things about athletes is every single one of our athletes and coaches has lost. They've gotten knocked down. They've stood up and got knocked down again. There's been so many things that have happened to them. They've been injured in the course from the time they were playing Pop Warner or gymnastics or whatever the sport was. These kids, they can do anything. And the coaches, after the hardest loss possible, I get to go into the locker room and look those coaches in the eye and say, hey, it's going to be all right. It's tough. If you had a mic on us and you had some film, those are some of the greatest conversations that I can imagine for me and those coaches. But the next day when I see them, the next day after a good night's sleep or no sleep, they're like, okay, let's go. What's next? And that's why I'm not as worried about our kids as I am with some of our fans.
Tom Holmoe on BYU Sports Nation, BYU Athletic Director. I know we're always looking for silver linings in the midst of difficulties like this. So in the few days that you've had to try and kind of pinpoint some of these and look for good things, what have you seen that's encouraged you about moving forward?
I just think the hope. That's the one word that we use, and what I'm seeing is that they're already planning. Now look, everybody understands that the task at hand right now is to recover. We have to take care of our world, our country, Utah County, Provo, and BYU. We got to take care of all the individual teams. So we all have a task ahead, but hey, we can do this. It's all going to happen.
What's the plan or the conversation like in terms of the athletes when it comes to potentially the coronavirus and or testing and whatnot? Because some have gone home, right? Some are still here.
Yeah, most of them have gone home, but there are more than I thought that would be here. We have tried to be compliant with the gatherings in 10 or less, but I think there's half of our student athletes have stayed. That's way more than I thought. And so kind of in the spirit of what everybody is trying to do with social distancing and to stop this virus, we're going to shut things down. We just think it's most important. Instead of, at first we had our coaches and working with some of the individuals that were really struggling through this. You could get some shots up or take a little BP. But right now, the country, the President of the United States, our church, the university, everyone's saying, hey, let's all be responsible. And so we're in line with everybody else.
Fantastic stuff. Tom, the future TikTok superstar.
And BYU fans living in your basement, it feels like. Yeah.
Hey, with all this spare time, there's going to be some new technology when we come back that's going to send TikTok to...
True, and we got to go to break, but just this thought, some of the greatest periods of innovation have come after some real issues in
we're hoping for
history
that.
of the world, right?
Yeah. Tom, we appreciate you. We appreciate the message you sent out yesterday and taking some time with us today.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, coming up, Davide Gardini on the abrupt ending to the volleyball season.
Plus, a